Hello everyone, my name is Om. Welcome to the Tea Break series. This is a series of short videos, usually not longer than 5 minutes, discussing various tech ideas. In this session, we are going to learn about instruction set architecture and why it is so important. Let us assume that we are an application developer. So we write an application in any high-level language, be it C, C++, Java, anything, and then we use compiler to convert this high-level language to a machine code. This machine code is often known as binary or binary code. We then execute this binary on a piece of hardware. Now the question is, how does the compiler know what operation this particular hardware supports? Where does the operand reside? How does the CPU stores and manages the data? This is where the instruction set architecture comes in. ISA tells the compiler developers what a CPU can do and tells the CPU designer or the hardware designer what CPU should do. So basically, if you see, ISA acts as an interface between software and hardware. From a layman's point of view, ISA would have some details about what operations it supports, what are the various types of operands supported and where to fetch it from, and how to store and manage the data. Let us now see what are the typical types of operations what most of the ISA supports. So any CPU would mostly provide addition, subtraction, multiplication and division. These are the arithmetic operations. It also provides some kind of logical operations like AND or NOT. It can also provide arithmetic shift right or logical shift right and shift left and right. Logical shift left and right mimics multiplication and division by 2. It can also provide some kind of rotate operations. Now CPU often needs to access data from memory, and then it also has certain state registers. So there has to be certain instructions which transfers data between memory and registers. Some ISA have dedicated IO transfer instructions which can read and write to the IO. What it might assume is a memory mapped IO. So what it basically means that IO is mapped to a memory region, and from that point all the instructions assume it to be like a memory address. There has to be certain branch instructions for decision making or jumping from a main program to a subroutine and all kind of that stuff. If an application requires a floating point arithmetic, we can have floating point operations, and these are like system management operations like system calls. If there are exceptions, how to return it, return from there. For performance monitoring, we could have certain instructions that read the CPU state registers, or to change the behavior of the CPU or the execution sequence, we might have a certain CPU control registers as well. Having seen all the operations what it can perform, let us now see what kind of operands a typical ISA may define. Mostly ISA works on a data. The data can be any bits like 8 bits, 16 bits and so on. Now 8 bits are typically named as byte, and then when I say 8 bits in binary, so the entire range for unsigned 8 bits will be from 0 to power n minus 1. So for 8 bits it will be 0 to 255. But for a signed for a signed representation, this entire 0 to 255, it has to be now scaled between positive and negative numbers. So in that case, this range becomes 2 power n minus 1 to plus 2 power n minus 1 minus 1. So in that case, it will become minus 128 to plus 127. Similarly, for like half word, unsigned half word, signed word and signed unsigned word, and floating point numbers. Floating point number use IEEE 754 standard, in which we have one signed bit, and depending on like single precision or double precision, the exponent and mantissa bits like varies. On the right, we have tried to show what are the equivalent data mapping for with respect to high level language such as C. This can vary based on which high level language you are referring to. Now we have seen what are basic operations, what ISAs might provide, and what are the different types of data it operates on. Now the third part was, let us see how CPU stores and manages the data. Now, depending on how CPU stores and manages the data, the instruction architecture can vary. So there are, like most popularly, these are the 4 types of instruction architecture. There can be a stack based architecture, there can be accumulator based architecture, or a register memory or register architecture. So in case of stack or a stack architecture or a stack based architecture, so the operands are implicitly on the top of the stack. So what we mean, whenever an operation is performed, the operands are assumed to be present on the top of the stack, like this two, and then the result is again pushed back to the stack. Suppose now stack is basically a last in first out or first in last out kind of structure, where we basically, if we have these two operations, these two operands, so we pop this, so our stack pointer is currently pointing here. We operate on the operands and the result is pushed back onto this location. So if you take an example like this, suppose this is X, this is the memory Y. Now what are we trying to do? We are trying to push X to the memory, so X will be read and pushed here. So now this becomes X, now this becomes Y, and we say add. The moment we say add, the CPU would pop this X and Y, operate based on the instruction. The instruction in this case is add, and the result will be pushed back into this location. So at the end of this, the stack pointer will be pointing to this particular location. Then we have pop Z, means then we take this result and write to a memory location, which is Z. So JVM or Java Virtual Machine bytecode uses this stack based architecture. So there can be accumulator based architecture as well. So in this case, one operand is implicitly assumed to be present in the accumulator. The other operand can be from the memory or can be from the register as well. Let us take the same example. So what are we trying to do here? We are saying to load X. So again, if I assume this memory is X, then basically this particular data is loaded into the accumulator. Now accumulator has X. Then we say add Y. When we say add Y, this is Y. This memory data is directly added with the X, which is now currently present in the accumulator, and the result is again stored back into the accumulator. So at the end of execution of this, the result of x plus y would be available within this accumulator. Then when you do store z, the value of this accumulator is now stored into a memory with address set. So this is not very popular, but we have like Z80 and 6502 ISA which use this architecture. Let us talk about register memory architecture. So in this case, one operand is implicitly assumed to be part of the register, and the other operand is from memory. So let us take an example to understand this. So we say that load R1X. So let us assume this is the register R1, and again this is the memory X. So when we execute this line, this data is now available within this. Add R1Y, then if this is X and this is Y. So basically in this case, if you see, one of the operand we take it from the register file, and then one of the operand we take it from the memory. The result is implicitly assumed to be the same register where we are operating on. So we add, so if you see this R1 would be basically R1 plus Y. R1 previous to this execution was holding X, so R1 at the end of add will hold X plus Y. So when we store, like when we reach here, the value of this R1 would again be stored back to a memory with location set. This is most of the one of the popular architecture. Intel x86 uses this architecture. Let us discuss about register architecture. In this case, both the operands are assumed to be from the register file, and then the result of the operation is also stored in the register. And this, all the registers like nomenclature, we can read and write, like the two source of operands can be from two different registers, and the result can be stored to a third register as well. So now if you see, you have to suppose you have to add X plus Y. So if this is X, this is Y, and this was Z, then even before we perform the add, we have to bring X and Y into the register. So let us take an example for this. So let us assume this is R1, this is R2, and this is R3, and this is our X, this is our Y, and this is Z, and we are trying to perform Z equal to X plus Y from memory. So in this case, even before we perform the add operation, we need to read both the locations X and Y, bring it to the registers, and then operate on that, and then the result will be stored in the register. So this first line, load R1X, will bring this data here. Load R2Y will bring this data into this, and then add R3, R1, R2 will basically perform the instruction add on this to data, and the result will be stored here. This is R3, and the stored ZR3 will basically take this value of R3 and will store back to the Z. This brings us to the end of the session. In this session, we have tried to understand what is instruction set architecture, what are the various operations, what a typical ISA would provide, what are the operands it works on, and how does it stores and manages the data. I hope this video was useful. If you wish to be notified for future updates, please subscribe and hit the notification bell icon. Thank you.